All right, Sophie slash Tess's plan is progressing, but has she bit off a little more than she can chew? Let's talk about Surface episode 6. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. I'm here to talk to you about Surface Season 2, Episode 6, Atonement, coming to Apple TV Plus on March 28, 2025. This is the sixth episode in Surface Season 2, where Sophie slash Tess's plan seems to be progressing after she learned some new information. But is this episode worth your time? Is this episode worth watching? My hot take is, I think you should watch it later, but I actually really like this episode. This was a better episode in my mind, kind of a better episode of season 2. It has some interesting answers and a phenomenal ending that's going to set up some exciting reveals and moments for the rest of this season. I am excited to see where it goes. Look, I've been kind of lukewarm on Surface season 2. It's been my guilty pleasure. I enjoy it. It is entertaining, but I don't think it's great. This one was actually a pretty good episode, and it makes me excited to see where this is going to go next. So, all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there'll be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, and you might not, there are some surprises, some reveals, and that surprise ending. I would turn off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, in episode 6, Atonement, you have Sophie's plan coming to fruition. She just started to have some new memories about her past, and she has recruited James to kind of help her, but is James going to be someone she can trust? Well, you have to watch the episode to find out. So, things I liked about this episode. The first, look, I love the cast. I still like the cast. It's a really fun cast. I like all the characters. James has warmed up to me. Tess slash Sophie has been kind of hit or miss, but overall, look, this is an episode that has the same great cast that we like, and you get to see a lot of the characters because there was a big event during this episode that brings everyone kind of together. Second thing I liked, we get some answers. I like getting answers. I like kind of finding out more about what's happening. We get some pretty big reveals here. We get some pretty important information about Sophie's past and also what is going to happen next. And the last thing I love the ending. A big surprise ending, an interesting twist. It was a little bit projected, but still, I'm glad they set it up, and I feel like it is going to set up a really, really nice kind of barrel towards the conclusion of the season. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, I've not loved this for most of this season. It's just kind of okay writing. Some of the characters feel a little off. Some of the delivery was not great, which is not especially the writing's fault, but combined, it means that the dialogue isn't really good. And this is a thriller. This is a thriller that kind of like lives and dies on its characters. You need good dialogue. It's just okay. A second thing I didn't love, and this was something I noticed in the last episode, maybe it was in earlier ones, but there are some very drawn out scenes. Some scenes where like it'll pan all over an estate before getting to the character, or there's scenes where like someone will just be walking and the whole scene is them walking and then that's it. And I'm like, you don't need those. They feel drawn out. They feel like they're trying to fill time. And this episode did feel like it was kind of filling time because it's only 40 minutes long. The last episode had it 45 minutes long, 44 minutes long, something like that. Plenty of time. This one, maybe they were trying to pull out some extra, episode time. I don't know. I guess they were also just trying to set up the scenario, but it felt a little bit too much for me. Maybe I'm just impatient. I'm not sure. And the last thing I didn't love, this one felt more egregious. This is kind of like one of the big issues I have with this the season in general. I'll call it character changes. It feels like some of the characters kind of conform to the scene rather than like the scenes conforming to the characters. You'll have characters who like they'll be one way in a scene and then a little bit later 180. Their character has completely changed. They were like conniving before and now they are, and now they are asking for help. They were like caring and innocent and now they're like sinister. It's very weird. Some of the characters just seem to like flip on a dime, flip at the drop of the hat. I'll go into it in the recap on a couple of the ones I noticed, but it does feel like, there's not a ton of consistency in the characters. It makes for fun scenes. It makes for interesting moments, but it doesn't really make for like a consistent, fleshed out person. So, all that being said, Surface Season 2, Episode 6 comes to Apple TV Plus on March 28, 2025. Like I said, I think you should watch it later. I like this episode a little more. I like this episode more than the previous ones, but it still isn't great. But I'm hoping this will set up what should be a really fun finale, and maybe it'll push itself into the great category. We'll see. So if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens this episode, I'm going to turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So this episode has a little bit more of an intertwined plot, so I'm not going to break it up into the various characters. Basically, at the start, Quinn is checking in on James to make sure that he left the country. And then he checks in on his sister Eliza, and she's not doing that great. She's drinking, she's doing drugs. She is not coping with this information that the person that she had feelings for is also her half sister. Makes sense. Not sure why they conceal it for so long, but she is not doing that well. She is kind of going in a downward spiral. We will see what happens there. Now, meanwhile, Callum is also in a kind of a downward spiral. He's not working. He thinks that his boss is like against him and that the paper's out to get him. He gets a call from his boss, and he heads over. And when he gets there, she tells him that Claire, his assistant, was the one that was being paid by the Huntleys. She was getting paid for information. She was the one betraying him. He always thought it was his boss. Maybe it's also his boss, but we know at least it is Claire. So when she says this, she shows him a picture of Claire and the Huntleys, and then she says, "Hey, come back, and like finish the story." Things like that. Feels like his boss misses him. We'll see if he comes back to reporting. Maybe he'll get a tip during this episode. Now, meanwhile, Sophie has been relying on James more, which is weird. It's very weird. Her attitude to James was very strange last episode, where he was like coming to her for help, and then she's like, "What? There was insurance. You should be fine." And now she's like relying on James. Very weird changes because she was the like confident planning person that didn't want anything to do with James. Now she needs him. She calls him, tells him the story of, what happened to her. She finds out that she was killed when she was 6. She has a death certificate and whatnot, and she was given the identity of a dead girl. She was given the identity of Tess Caldwell. She was born Sophie Huntley. So she wonders if, having her life kind of taken away from her and growing up in the Huntley's house with, next to a person who had everything is kind of what drove her to be kind of selfish, I guess, and do the things that she did in season 1, basically taking the money from James and like, trying to take everything from him without having care. It's an interesting self-reflective moment. It doesn't last very long, but it's there. Sophie also wonders, hey, look, I have a death certificate. I wonder if my mom is alive. Like, Sophie has a death certificate. Maybe her mom's death certificate is fake as well. The autopsy was performed by the Huntley's doctor. Maybe this conspiracy runs deeper. We don't get much more information, but it is an interesting little, seed to plant. Now, Sophie calls her dad, Henry, and they arrange a meeting. And when she gets there, unfortunately, Richard, the family lawyer, is there with an offer. He offers her money for an NDA. She politely declines it, and she says, this is what they did to my mother, but for her, it was a lot more aggressive. And she basically says, "I'm not going to you're not going to be able to get rid of me that easily." Now, meanwhile, Eliza calls her after this incident randomly. Not Eliza's not put up to it. She just randomly calls, Tess in her phone, Sophie in reality, and they talk briefly. It seems like Eliza is upset with her, but then they come to an understanding because Eliza's like, "You're the only person that can like understand this messed up situation," because they both kind of went through it. So after this call, after this emotional night, Sophie calls James and tells him to come over. James consoles her, and then they hook up. And you're like, "What are you doing, James? And what are you doing, Sophie?" Like, not good. You got a little hint that maybe Sophie was, lonely or wanted to, get back with James earlier. James denied her. Now they hook up, and it's like, oh, that seems like a bad situation for everyone involved. But I guess they're the only ones they can rely on. I don't know. The next morning, Sophie tells James about the meeting and asks him to go to the wedding ceremony to Quinn and Grace's wedding. James agrees, but you can tell he's maybe a little bit hesitant, probably because he knows Quinn and he very well knows Grace. So Eliza, meanwhile, is still sad and moping at the house. There's a long, drawn out scene with her getting ready and then having a drink. It felt unnecessary. Again, it was long, drawn out scenes that didn't necessarily need to be there. Now, everyone heads to the wedding. James, at the last minute, says basically like people are going to ask who he is and it's going to be a distraction. So he says, "You know what, Sophie, you should go. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you at your place." Sophie agrees, even though it's a little bit weird last minute, but she agrees. She's very focused on what her plan is. Now, Sophie goes to the wedding and says that she wants to talk to her father. And this is a very fun scene because she's like, "I must be on the list. I'm family after all," which I loved. It's nice that Sophie is starting to like push that little dagger into the Huntleys. Grace sees her talking to the security guards, and she comes up and says that she can take it from there. It seems like Grace is going to be a little bit of an X factor. Seems like she's going to be a little bit of a chaos agent. Um, she, lets Sophie in and then talks briefly, and basically she says, she heard what happened, and she wants Sophie to take, her father, Henry Huntley, for all he's got. So, seems like Grace is going to add a little bit of spice to this family. I'm excited to see where that goes. Now, she ends up seeing her father and she says, they talk for a bit. And she says she wants to know what happened to her mother. And her father says that basically, later her mother, I think it was Emma, came to see him and she was like paranoid and kind of not in a great place. And she was driving away and slid the car off of a hairpin road bend in the road. The car caught on fire. Henry went to try to save her but couldn't. And then he regrets what he had to do after this. He said that his father, the old one that was hunting people, said that he needs to like let her go, basically like let Emma go, disappear all of that, and basically make it all go away. And he regrets it ever since. That is why Sophie ended up becoming Tess and whatnot. I guess that's why they did the whole switcheroo thing. Sophie hears this and then says like the way you feel doesn't change anything and walks away. She's still very upset, as you would be. Meanwhile, Eliza sees her mother in the bathroom and they talk a little bit about Sophie, and her mother says that Eliza's father did everything that he could for Sophie's mother. He gave her money and a car. The car comes up a lot, probably because it is what Emma died in. But they always mention a car. And then her mother asks if anything happened between Eliza and Sophie, and Eliza just starts crying. So they console each other. It's a interesting scene, but it's a touching scene. Now, meanwhile, Sophie leaves the wedding. I guess she got what she came for. She wanted to see her dad, cause a little chaos, and she's leaving. As she's leaving, she talks to Quinn briefly, and he comes off fairly clean here, which is weird because he hadn't had that. He hadn't been cunning. He had been kind of like painted as kind of nice, like he was, caring about Phoebe when that whole thing happened. He was a little bit of a, drunken idiot at times, whatnot. Here he comes off as like very calculating, which is again weird. It's like he's his character changed at the drop of a hat. He talks to Sophie briefly and he says, if you don't take the money, it gets much worse. And Sophie says, don't worry, it's not personal. Whatever happens next is not personal. So Quinn is kind of like trying to be a little sinister here, and it just comes off as a little bit strange. Although, look, I think Phil Dunster did a good job. Like it is a fun scene, but it doesn't really feel like Quinn's character. Now, after this, Sophie goes to Callum, the reporter Callum, and tells him who she is. She gives him a recording of her dad trying to erase the existence of his daughter, her, and she says that she'll give him the story if she remains anonymous. Callum can't guarantee that. He says, I can't guarantee that, but I think she's still going to give him the story anyways. Now, meanwhile, Eliza is back at her flat looking at pictures, and she randomly sees a picture of a car. I couldn't see in the screener if it was Sophie by the car or what. It was an old blue car that was randomly in her like wall of pictures. It seems like a pretty old picture. Maybe it's an old picture of her mom. I'm not sure. Or her dad. Maybe it was her dad. It might have been her dad next to this old car. But that triggers a memory in Eliza of them walking through a forest and seeing like an old car kind of covered in vines like it'd been there for a while. And so I think this is meant to plant the seed that maybe her dad did something, had something to do with the disappearance of Sophie's mother. Because her dad said the car had burned up. I don't think this car was burned up. It looked like it had been there for a long time. You would think that they would have gotten rid of it. Maybe that car was there to like hide evidence. Maybe that car, is where Sophie's mom was killed. Maybe that whole story is made up. I'm not sure. We'll find out more later. Now, meanwhile, Sophie comes back to her flat and the alarm is blaring. She gets in and the safe is empty, and you're like, James, you did it. She's looking at the safe and she remembers when she was opening it, James was kind of in the corner of her eye looking at her, and seems like he was trying to figure out what the combo was on the safe because Sophie had no OPSEC. She was just opening it willy-nilly around people. She did the USB stick code in front of him. She was not being careful, and now she's lost $8 million. James later is walking away. He's walking away from this. It seems like he is going to like leave. It seems like his whole plan was to get in here, take Sophie's money, and run. I guess. I mean, we'll see if there's more to his plan, but that plan is derailed anyways because he gets kidnapped. We don't know who, but we assume it's the Huntleys because at the very start, Quinn was asking about James, asking to be looked into. And so at this point, I assume that now he got some information. Maybe he realized who James is. Maybe he realized that James is, Sophie's husband, and he thinks there's a big plan here. So James gets kidnapped. So that's the episode. Some exciting moments here. Sophie has lost her nest egg. James is in trouble, and the family is starting to kind of realize that this story might break. So, what do we think is going to happen next? Well, I got some questions like, what's James going to do? Where is he going to go? I assume the Huntleys kidnapped him, but maybe someone else. Maybe they'll introduce a new character. They like to introduce new characters. They introduced a new Catholic priest last episode. Maybe this will be a new character here. Maybe it's his old firm. Maybe his firm is tracking it down. Or maybe it's the people that he was supposed to pay money to. Maybe he didn't pay the money. Maybe he kept the money thinking he'd be fine because he'd get the whole score and they tracked him down and now he is in deep trouble. We'll see. Again, who killed Phoebe? Phoebe wasn't even mentioned in this episode. So I still think it could be Grace. They were projecting Henry, but I think it could still be Grace. Grace seems to have a little bit more, layers in her than we originally thought. Will Sophie be able to stay out of the papers? I'm gonna guess not. It wouldn't be a very interesting, series if Sophie was able to just like stay anonymous. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if Callum publishes the story. We'll have to see what happens. And also, will the Huntleys try some more aggressive tactics with Sophie? It seems like they hint that they can do that. It seems like there's a history of people getting hurt around the Huntleys. Maybe great. Maybe Sophie is going to be in some trouble now, and she doesn't have that money to rely on. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. My guess is the Huntleys, Henry is going to become a little more aggressive. My guess is Eliza will help her out. There will be probably some scene where like Sophie is, for hurt or is in trouble, and Eliza helps and like defies her father. And maybe in that moment, Quinn will also come around to help her, and that'll be their redeeming moment against their bad, mean father. We'll see. I don't know. But those are just my guesses. But that is Surface Season 2, Episode 6. Like I said, it's okay. It's a better episode. I liked this episode more than the previous ones, and it sets up what I hope will be a pretty exciting finale. If you do see it, a pretty exciting finale arc. But if you do see it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you like and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.